What's up, grillers? I'm Quacker's Coat, and this is the fish fry for December 3rd, being held at Sockeye Station. Our cooking utensils are the Splattershot Nova, the Blaster, the Splat Brella, and the Jet Squelcher. It was fun to be back at Marooner's Bay, but it's even more fun to be back here at Sockeye Station. And we have a composition with a lot of paintability, so it should be really fun. This composition also has some pretty good range with it, with the Splattershot Nova and the Jet Squelcher having very similar ranges. This kit also has a lot of ink efficiency and mobility, so it should make getting to some of these priority targets a little bit easier. The only problem with this kit is it has a little bit of a lower damage output. So it would be a smart idea to put that Blaster and the Splat Brella on a little bit of extra lesser control. The Nova and the Jet Squelcher can easily put some needle damage onto some Quahawks, making it easier to keep this map under control. So get as much of Sockeye Station painted as possible. It really does open up a ton of movement opportunities, and whenever we're trying to get our way to the basket or off the shoreline, having to paint walls in the middle of moving can lead us to having some problems. With the paintability of the Jet Squelcher and the Nova, it'd be best if they go paint the tower wall. And then with the mid-wall paintability of the Blaster, and the ability to paint longer walls with the Splat Brella, it'd be best if they start on the left side of the map, trying to paint all of those mid and lower walls there by the double platform. If we find ourselves on a high tide, it'll be helpful to put that Blaster and that Splat Brella just a little bit more on lesser control. The Jet Squelcher and the Nova could easily be on the higher platforms or the tower, providing support from above. And remember to use that incredible mobility, and hopefully that tower's painted, because sometimes we get boosted off and it's easy to catch yourself on that wall and climb all the way back around, or to get yourself back up to the top with a squid surge. Try to stay focused on what's spawning during a high tide. You can easily take out a steel eel or a stinger before it's become too much of a problem. The only thing that's truly difficult about Sockeye Station is its low tide. Low tide at Sockeye Station is a lesson on luring bosses, but we'll find ourselves overrun if we're not taking out these priority targets on the shoreline. But they give us the sides here on low tide, so if you ever go to those sides to start taking out priority targets, make sure you get yourself back to the basket so that way we can clear that basket area and get those eggs in. And all the tools of this composition are really good at taking out stingers and fish sticks, with the Splat Brella having the biggest problem with fish sticks, and the Splattershot Nova having the biggest problem with stingers. But with how big this map is and the placement of fish sticks, stingers and fish sticks are super high priority targets. On a glowfly's occurrence, the Splattershot Nova's damage output is just low enough that it will need help to hold that line. The Jet Squelcher and the Splat Brella can do a fantastic job on helping out the Nova. For the Splat Brella, open up the Brella without releasing it to splat chum as they're coming in. If there's two people focusing on that damage line, then try to put that Blaster and Jet Squelcher on trying to hit that Goldie before it hits the line. On a Gorilla's occurrence, it's kind of the same situation. The Splattershot Nova's damage output can be just low enough that they might find themselves getting hit by the small fry. So it doesn't hurt for that Jet Squelcher or the Splat Brella to help out with small fry control. That Blaster can also do an incredible job on thinning out that horde. During a Mudmouth occurrence, since we don't have a utensil that's really good at taking out Quahawks, it would be best to focus on that golden Mudmouth as soon as you see it. Other than that, all the other weapons in this kit could do a fantastic job at lesser control during a Mudmouth wave. On a Mothership wave, there should be a fun composition for it. That Jet Squelcher can pretty much stay near the tower and take out a majority of the Chinooks. The Nova could also stay there by the double platform, easily providing a little bit more Chinook control. And while they're doing that, the Splat Brella and the Blaster can take out multiple boxes that have already landed on the ground. And don't forget to get that Jet Squelcher and that Nova up there to the top of the tower to cause some damage onto that Mothership on approach. During a giant tornado, we kind of have the same rules that we have with the Mudmouth wave. Nothing is really crazy good at lesser control, so whenever the salmon start dropping, it'd be helpful if everybody focuses on taking out that horde as quick as possible, that way we can start getting those eggs ran as quick as possible. During a Goldie Seek, if the Splat Brella player can position themselves in front of the Goldie and keep pace, that'd be helpful so that way all of your spread is hitting the Goldie. And for a Goldie Seek at Sockeye Station, if you're on a regular tide, if those 3 gushers on the beach are low, then you know it's going to be the one by the basket. And on a high tide, if any of the 3 gushers by the basket are high, then it's going to be near the basket. And if any of those 3 gushers are low, then it's going to be the one by the double platform. So let's get this map painted, and let's take a break from that very stressful wildcard rotation at Marooner's Bay. Alrighty guys, back to Sockeye Station. Let's go. Okay, let's get into the cookware. Our first cooking utensil is the Splattershot Nova. The Splattershot Nova has a decreased damage output compared to the Splattershot, but the Nova did keep one of the best qualities of the Splattershot, and that's its wall paint ability. It also sports more range, which is helpful to keep in mind with this utensil. If you try to play this too aggressively, it doesn't have the damage output to keep yourself safe. Sockeye Station has all these platforms, move in between them, and try to cause that damage with a little bit of distance. Clear the way and definitely paint a wall on your way in there. Give yourself that exit strategy before you even get into the mess of it. The Nova is also a very good support weapon. With the blaster and the Splat Brella having a slower fire rate, it wouldn't hurt to see what they're getting into and how you could assist them. The Nova is also a really good tool for taking out fish sticks. As long as you aim on the right side of their rotation, keeping the enemies in your reticle for a longer amount of time, the DPS of it should take them out. The Nova's mobility does make it one of the best weapons for getting in, getting an egg, and getting out with this composition. So make sure you do that. Don't linger in one spot for too long, keep your movement fresh, and see what your teammates are doing. Our second cooking utensil is the blaster. The blaster is one of the best tools for taking out fish sticks or taking out stingers. This thing also does really good at lesser control, as long as you make sure that blast can damage as many enemies as possible. And since we have Sockeye Station as our map, we have all of this range and this height to our advantage. Make sure you use it and deal as much damage as possible. The blaster and the Splat Brella can easily clear the way, making it easier to reach some of these targets, or to clear out the way, so that way when we lure a boss, we also don't have to deal with a horde. The blaster also has one of the best fire rates for swim jumping, so don't forget to swim jump this, that way your shot could be a little bit more advantageous on where the blast is exploding and where that damage is being dealt. It's also a great weapon for taking out drizzler missiles, so keep an eye out for those. Easily splat them back and take that out before you have to deal with that rain. Our third cooking utensil is the Splat Brella. The Splat Brella has a pretty good ratio of damage to fire rate. It's just barely lacking in some range to make it really useful. And the Splat Brella also has a perfect spot where all of that spread of ink will hit your target. So there's going to be moments where you should get some distance against your enemies, that way that spread causes more damage. And then just like the Splattershot, you need to get in really close, that way all that damage is caused on the enemy. There are some enemies like Stillheads that you can fit their weak spot right into that reticle just perfectly and cause some massive damage. The Brellas have a really interesting painting trick. If you position yourself parallel to the wall, aiming slightly diagonally towards it, that spread will move all the way across the wall, painting it more efficiently. And the fact that the Splat Brella can open up and take out chum makes it a fantastic shield and weapon that you can use. The Splat Brella is also the worst weapon for taking out fish sticks in this composition, but if you can position that reticle, that way more of the fish stick enemies are in your reticle for a longer amount of time, you're able to take out more than one in a single shot. It still probably wouldn't hurt to ping this way, that way your teammates know that they have a much better weapon for taking out the fish stick. Our last cooking utensil is the Jet Squelcher. The Jet Squelcher has the longest range in this composition, so don't forget to play it that way. It wouldn't hurt to keep yourself right there on the top of the tower, keeping an eye on what's spawning and how you can take out some of those priority targets. The Jet Squelcher can easily take out a stinger before anybody else has noticed. The Jet Squelcher can also do an incredible job on helping out with Cohawk control. There's nothing wrong with keeping the Jet Squelcher's damage output going and trying to keep the field clear of lessers, waiting for those bosses to get closer to the basket. You can easily start focusing on big shots, potentially splatting them before their second cannon shot. And as mentioned before, all of this composition has some pretty good ink efficiency, so don't forget to keep yourself topped off, that way whenever a Moz shows up, you can get him over there closer to the basket and get some easy eggs on this map. The Jet Squelcher is also the best weapon for taking out fish sticks in this composition, so make sure you focus on that. The fish stick locations here at Sockeye are just perfect to cut almost all of our mobility. They are a high priority target, and take them out. On an extra wave, our DPS is just a little bit low, so we will need a good amount of golden eggs in order to take this King Salmonid down. But luckily this composition has some range to it, so there's no reason to get yourself too close to anything, keep your distance, and try to take out those targets, getting some of those golden eggs. Also with the ink efficiency of this kit, it'll be an easy one to break away from combat, to toss a bomb, or to take out some of those priority targets. And look for that moment right at the beginning of the extra wave, where you can activate your special to not just cause damage to the Kohozuna, but to also take out some bosses, spawning some golden eggs early on in the wave. And the fish fry usually comes out before the stage rotation, so if you want to catch these updates when they're hot and fresh, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And if you want other fellow Grizzco employees to receive these tips, make sure you like and share the video. Bye bye! To give the fish fry an algorithm boost, just comment what your favorite or least favorite weapon is of this composition. I would give it to the Nova, but I'm such a big fan of the Jet Squelcher and Salmon Run that I'm going to say the Jet Squelcher. Alrighty, bye bye guys.